morning, Chris. I mean, you come under ferocious fire. The Daily Mail today, two-page spread, your fury over bird brains, seething with anger. Mail readers give it with both barrels to laws that leave spring lambs and rare birds vulnerable to murderous pests. The argument going that if you don't control the bird pests, then all hell breaks loose. How do you respond to this argument? A lot of anger coming your way from people who live in rural parts of England,
farmers,
who believe they know
farmers.
The reality on the ground.
It's entirely fake news. It's entirely fake news. Our interaction with Natural England was to protect the birds that are being unnecessarily killed. We never framed this to stop farmers from killing birds which could be described as pests.
So, for instance, crows.
Yeah.
Because this photograph, well, these three photographs, just warn you,
yes,
they're not very nice, by the way. The grim proof of carnage that they wreak. Crows renowned for their cruelty, killing other birds, even each other, as well as vulnerable lambs. The concern for many farmers is that at certain times of year, when the lambs are out in the fields and they get caught on their backs, they're not strong enough to right themselves, the crows can peck their eyes out. And the farmers say, give us the chance to kill the crows, and then we can protect the lambs.
There was never any intention to stop the farmers from doing that.
But it seems to may not have been in the intention, but it seems to have been the consequence.
No, I think the consequence is that the fake news has been generated. So I'm not going to argue that crows kill other birds. It's part of a natural process. Animals kill each other the whole time. That's how the world goes round. That's the first thing to say. So I can't argue against the pictures there. Also, I'm not going to argue that farmers shouldn't be able to manage wildlife populations when they are potentially damaging their income, their livelihood and so on and so forth.
So what are you arguing?
Well, on the list of 16 birds which are legally able to be killed are birds which are wantonly shot merely for vandalism. People go out to kill them not because they're farmers protecting their stock or their crops.
Like which type of birds?
Jays and magpies and crows. So if you go into the countryside, Piers, of a weekend, you will meet people who are out killing vermin, and when you ask them what they're killing, they'll say, well, I'm shooting magpies, crows, the animals that are on the list. They're legally able to do that.
Someone here, I mean, the first Daily Mail letter, last week I watched helplessly as a magpie cleared the eggs from a blackbird nest in my garden. As a keen ornithologist and nature lover,
part of life.
I wonder how Chris Packham and his crew feel about this. And why is, interesting, another point, why is a BBC presenter allowed to take such a stance? I thought their presenters were supposed to be impartial. So two parts to that. One, he says magpies are predatory.
With part one. So magpies do predate birds. They take their eggs and chicks during a short period of the breeding season. It's just part of a natural process. Magpies have got to eat too.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, to be honest, I'm not sure that's the biggest concern, is it? Because, of course, as you say, there's a sort of natural order that happens.
Yeah, but it's a concern because you're identifying magpies as one of the birds on that list that should actually be removed.
Well, I'm not saying they should be removed from that list. I'm saying that people, if they have a real problem, those magpies, impacting not on songbirds, where they will be naturally regulated, but on their livelihood, then they can apply for a licence. The licence can be granted as long as they prove that they've gone to every other means of controlling those birds by scaring them or netting them, keeping them away. Then they can be granted a licence to kill them. And that's what happens overseas, and it works.
But the argument against that, Chris, as you know, is that that is too onerous, for instance, on a farmer who is simply
Well, it works across Europe, where farmers make those applications and they pay for them, and that covers the cost of the admin, and it's implemented properly. And what this would do would stop the vandalistic killing of millions of birds across the UK, which are not killed because they're damaging crops and pets. They're killed because people just want to go out and kill things for pleasure. Is
it the case that the general licence, because your legal action has meant that farmers would have to apply, as you say, specifically for a licence once they've proved they've done everything else in their power. But is it true that the general licence just applies in January?
No.
It's at all year round.
And
how many, because you're saying basically that it doesn't work because too many people abuse it and just say, well, I'm going out to kill these birds, but actually it's for their own pleasure or whatever sick reason you might have.
There's no ambiguity about that. That is the case.
Yeah. And how many people do that, and what impact does it have on these animals? And is it, I don't know,
Well,
perhaps
Susanna,
part of
I'd
the
like to be
solution
able to answer
rather
that
than the
question,
problem?
but because there's a lack of regulation within the shooting bodies, I can't even tell you how many of these birds they kill. And therefore, I can't tell you whether they're having any negative or positive impact on conservation. And until we have those figures, data generated, then we can't make informed decisions. And this is part and parcel of our problem. You know, I can tell you how many ducks of which species arrive here because bird watchers count them. I can't tell you, because no bag totals are kept in the UK, how many of those birds are shot. So how can we work together to conserve them if we don't even know what the impact of shooting is?
As a BBC presenter, you should be impartial,
yes,
and not be so overtly political.
I'm not permanently employed by the BBC. I work for the BBC from time to time on their wildlife programmes, where I appear there because I have some expertise in that.
So as such, are you permitted to have a controversial view like this?
Well, it isn't controversial from my point of view.
Reading the Daily Mail today is pretty controversial.
Well, the Daily Mail is quite good at making quite a lot of things controversial.
Well, yeah, but you can't argue that.
As you would know.
Oh, sure, but a lot of their readers clearly feel incensed about this.
I know, but
and feel that their way of living is under fire.
Yeah.
And they don't really understand why.
Well,
why? And they fear there's a bigger agenda that you might have, which is alien to their lifestyle. That's what they say.
You can see the argument from farmers, can't you?
Because they've been misinformed, yes, I can, yeah.
But it's actually affecting them negatively. They previously had a general licence to go out and do what they needed to do to get rid of the pests who were affecting their livelihood.
And that licence
now that you've stopped
was
that happening.
withdrawn.
But with good intentions, you've
with good
stopped them.
intentions, and it was withdrawn for a period of 5 days because basically it was being implemented illegally. So what we have done is raise the question of how these licences should be structured, how they should be implemented, and how they should be managed for the benefit of farmers and wildlife. And I think that's a valid question for any conservationist to ask in a country where most of our major habitats are in decline, and we've lost 90 million birds, Piers, Susanna, since 1970 from our countryside. If you go out this morning, there's virtually a silent spring out there, and that's not down to the fact that the crows are eating all the songbirds, nor the magpies.
Do you feel personally under attack? Because I noticed that you've had to step up security at home.
OK, so the police have spent quite a considerable amount of time at my house over the last few days. We've had packages sent containing human excrement. Last night, I can't speak too much about what happened last night because I haven't been in touch with the police yet, but
Or something else, another threat against you?
Quite much more seriously, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, see, I find this disgusting. This should not be happening. You and your family should not be targeted.
Not just my family,
Piers.
Piers. It's businesses that I work with, small businesses that I'm associated with loosely. I'm very resistant to this sort of thing. It's part of a process that I will have to go through to effect change, and I am determined to do that, and I'm going to. So they can send me as much human excrement.
But what kind of thing happened last night? It sounds serious.
Death threats of a very serious nature.
Really?
Yeah. So they can carry on.
Against you and your family?
Yes, and I will continue to do what I want to do. What worries me is that the charities that I'm affiliated with, the small businesses that I work for, these people aren't set up to take this sort of abuse, and yet they've had to close their websites, their TripAdvisor accounts have had to been shut down because I've been bombarded by these bullies who want to take aim at me. My message is clear. Please, take aim at me, but leave all of the charities, all of the other businesses that I work with, leave them out of it. They're not necessarily sharing my views. They're not a fair target.
Okay. I'd just like to intervene. No one should take aim at you with sending you rubbish, crap, literally, and threatening your life or those close to you. No one should be doing that.
I think
absolutely take you on in terms of an argument.
As we are making more progress to introduce regulation and change into our countryside, which is necessary for its sustainable health and welfare, these people feel cornered and they're lashing out, and therefore I have to be tolerant of these sorts of attacks. And I can tell you one thing, I will never be swayed by them.
Good.
All right,
because
Chris Packham.
whatever you think about the argument, and you can be on one side or the other, death threats, what on earth is wrong with people?
No, ridiculous.
What is wrong with people?
Chris, we appreciate you coming in. It's a debate that will rage on, and it'll be interesting to see how it continues. The British Association for Shooting and Conservation have said general licences are a critical tool for effectively managing our countryside, and the manner in which they've been withdrawn has caused real anger and frustration.